Moscow. President Vladimir V. Putin of Russia and President-elect Donald J. Trump spoke by telephone for the first time on Monday, agreeing to review what both consider the poor state of relations between the two countries, according to a statement from the Kremlin. The two agreed on the absolutely unsatisfactory state of bilateral relations, said the statement, and they both endorsed the idea of undertaking joint efforts to normalize relations and pursue constructive cooperation on the broadest possible range of issues. The Russian president said he hoped that Moscow could build a collaborative dialogue with Washington on the basis of equality, mutual respect and non-interference in the other's internal affairs, the release said. The two men also discussed Syria in the context of the need to work together in the struggle against the number one common enemy, international terrorism and extremism, the statement said. The Russian government was one of the few around the world that was openly gleeful about the American election result, with members of the State Duma, the lower house of the Russian legislature, breaking into applause at the announcement. The United Russia Party, loyal to Mr. Putin, dominates the Duma. Mr. Trump and Mr. Putin developed something of a mutual admiration society during the election, particularly after Mr. Trump suggested that Crimea, which Moscow annexed from Ukraine, should belong to Russia and that the United States should ally itself with Russia and the Syrian government of President Bashar al-Assad to fight the Islamic State. Mr. Trump also suggested the United States might dilute its support for NATO, which Russia considers a main threat. Mr. Putin openly endorses the idea that the world should return to the era when two superpowers assumed the general responsibility for global stability and security. On the phone call, which the Kremlin said was arranged by mutual consent, the two men agreed to stay in contact and to meet at an unspecified date in the future. Earlier, Mr. Trump described the note on his victory that he received from Mr. Putin as beautiful. For its part, Russia has continued its glowing tributes to Mr. Trump as a paragon who triumphed in what is repeatedly depicted in the Russian media as the swamp of American politics. The main weekly news program on state television every Sunday night tends to focus mainly on the United States, with Dmitry Kiselyov, the anchor, suggesting this week that Europe follow the American lead in replacing its leaders. Under President Trump, Mr. Kiselyov said, the American government would finally drop what the Russian anchor called its annoying slogans about human rights and democracy. Russia has a lot of trust in Trump, he said.